Today's sermon is delivered by Venerable Maharagama Ananda Thera, Sandavimala Sanasuna, Valigampitiya, Pokunuvita.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Dear Dhamma friends, faithful devotees, and dear listeners, for today's Dhamma sermon, I have selected a certain discourse from Majjhima Nikaya titled Vitakka Santana Sutta. The meaning of this title is the removal of distracting thoughts. So, having heard the meaning of this title, you would think that what is the significance of removal of distracting thoughts? So, let us discuss this in deeply along with this preaching. So, let us go into the sutta straight away. When the Buddha was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, there was a merchant, Jeta's Grove, owned by the merchant Anathapindika. We call them Anathapindika's park. Once the Buddha addressed the bhikkhus and said, when a monk is pursuing a higher mind, from time to time, he should give attention to 5 signs. What does this mean, Dhamma friends? The Buddha meant when a monk is pursuing a higher mind. What does that mean? Higher mind stands for the 8 meditative attainments, to which we call Ashta Samapatti in Pali. Especially, this is relevant to the Samatha Bhavana, the mindfulness meditation. So, Buddha meant here, when a monk is striving hard or pursuing a higher mind, who is meditating to attain a higher mind, the Buddha suggests that time to time, he should give attention to 5 signs. But I have selected this discourse, Dhamma friends, for a special reason. Because this, as a whole, this discourse teaches us about 5 ways by means of which we can get rid of distracting thoughts, especially evil, unwholesome thoughts. So here the Buddha describes how by means of 5 attempts, by means of 5 levels, we can get rid of these distracting thoughts. What is the first step, Dhamma friends? The Buddha says, when a monk is giving attention to some sign, especially an arammana or sign which belongs to a particular meditation, when a bhikkhu is giving attention to that sign, and owing to that sign, there arises in him evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, hatred, and delusion. Dhamma friends, we know that especially when we are making progress in our samatha bhavana, the mindfulness meditation, there is always distracting thoughts comes in our way. Especially they are connected with desire, hatred, and delusion, to which we call raga, dvesha, and moha. Then for the first step, for the first remedy, the Buddha suggests that then what should you do? Then you should give attention to some other sign connected with what is wholesome. What does that mean, Dhamma friends? The distraction is unwholesome. Therefore, the Buddha suggests us that you should recall a thought which is of wholesome nature, the exact opposite of the unwholesome thought. Then what will happen, Dhamma friends? The Buddha says, when you are recalling or when you are memorizing the unwholesome, wholesome thought, which is exactly opposed to this evil, unwholesome thought, the distraction, what would happen? Then any evil, unwholesome thoughts connected with desire, with hatred, and with delusion are abandoned in him, and they would subside. And also with that abandoning of them, what would happen to his mind? His mind become steadied internally. We call abbattangachati, and it will be quieted. It will be calm and quiet, and it will be brought to singleness, ekodi bhavang hoti, and it will be concentrated, samadhi. Then you will reach a samadhi. This is the first step, how you should avoid a distracting thought. Then the Buddha draws a very beautiful example, the very beautiful simile to describe this step. Then he would say, just as a skilled carpenter or his apprentice might knock out or remove or extract a coarse peg by means of a fine one. What does that mean, dumb friends? Okay, suppose that there is a wooden frame, there is a wooden board, and a bigger nail has been fit to that particular board. Then if you wish to remove that, how should you remove that? By means of which? Then you can choose a finer one, a finer nail, and you can use it to remove that bigger nail. Likewise, you can use a wholesome thought to remove an unwholesome thought. This is the first step. And the Buddha also suggests that although you are memorizing a wholesome thought to get rid of that unwholesome thought, still all these distracting thoughts are coming in your way. As a second effort, what should you do? Then the Buddha suggests, then you should examine the danger in these thoughts. Thus, how? Then you can recall, you can examine these thoughts as these thoughts are unwholesome, and these thoughts are reprehensible, and these thoughts result in suffering. These thoughts would result in suffering. In other words, Dhamma friends, the Buddha suggests us to memorize, to recall the consequences, the negative consequences of these unwholesome thoughts. So when you recall these negative consequences of the distracting thought, what would happen? As I mentioned before, they will be subsided, they will be abandoned, and they will be steadied internally, and they will be brought to singleness, and the mind will be concentrated. So for this attempt also, the Buddha gives a beautiful simile. Then he says, okay, suppose that there is a man or a woman who is very young and who is very youthful and who is very fond of ornaments. We know that by nature, these youths are very fond of beautifying their bodies. And imagine such a young woman or a young man would be horrified, would be humiliated, and he would be disgusted if a carcass of a snake or a dog or a human being were hung around her or neck. What does that mean, Dhamma friends? Okay, suppose that there's a person, a youth, who's very fond of his external appearance, outward appearance. Now he or she has beautified his body. So somebody else comes and he would put some stinking carcass or dead body of a dog or a snake or a man around their neck. So how would they feel? They will be horrified, they will be humiliated, and they will be disgusted. Likewise, when an unwholesome thought comes to your mind, then when you recall the very nature of these unwholesome thought, how they are unwholesome and how they are reprehensible and how they will bring about suffering, then naturally you will get rid of that thought. So this is the second level the Buddha wanted us to memorize. Then, Dhamma friends, the Buddha also suggests, still, when you are recalling the negative consequences of this unwholesome thought, still all these distracting thoughts are coming your way, disturbing all the way to the path. Then what should you do at the third step? The Buddha says, then you should try to forget that thought. And you should try to ignore that thought, and you should not give attention to them. We know, Dhamma friends, generally, when somebody wants our attention, but we do not pay our attention to him, what would his response will be? He will get away of us. He will ignore us and he will go back. Just like that, when one of these distracting thoughts coming in our way, if we were to ignore them, if we were to not pay our attention to them, then these distracting thoughts will subside. Then afterwards, our mind will come back to normal and it will be concentrated. For that attempt also, the Buddha draws a beautiful example. Then he says, just as a man with good eyes who did not want to see forms that had come within the range of his sight, he would either shut his eyes or look away. If you really don't want to look at something, what would you do? You will close your eyes and you will look away. So this is the third step, Dhamma friends. Then the Buddha goes to the next step, and he still suggests us, still when you are trying to forget, when you are trying to ignore that distracting thought which comes to your way, then still these evil distracting thoughts are coming your way as a disturbance. What should you do next? Then the Buddha suggests us, then you should give attention to stilling the thought formation of that thought. What does that mean, Dhamma friends? It means you have to stop the course of the thought. So you have to concentrate, you have to focus your attention to the originating point of that thought. So when we are focusing your attention to the originating point of that thought, what would happen to that evil, unwholesome thought? It will subside and it will lose its strength, and ultimately it will dwindle away, it will leave you. So this can be a practical matter. This can be a practical point that you can even testify in your day-to-day life, Dhamma friends. Imagine that you have an ache or pain in your body, which is unavoidable. Then if you were to focus your attention to the exact place where this pain comes, where this ache is originated, then Dhamma friends, you can testify and see, then that particular pain's strength will be dwindled away. That strength will be subsided. In the same way, the Buddha suggests us to focus on the originating point of that evil, unwholesome thought. So, for this example also, Dhamma friends, Buddha gives us beautiful simile. So he says that just as a man walking fast might consider, why am I walking fast? What if I were walk slowly? Having thought like that, he would walk slowly. Then while walking so slowly, he's again thinking to himself, why am I walking slowly? What if I stand? And as a result of that thought, he would stand. Then while standing at that particular place, he would again think to himself, why am I standing? What if I sit? As a result of that, he would sit. So while sitting, again, Dhamma friends, he would ask to himself, why am I sitting? What if I to lie down? Having thought that, he would lie down. So likewise, Dhamma friends, the Buddha suggests us, by doing so, you would substitute for each grosser posture one that was subtler. What that means, by doing so, you would substitute for each grosser posture one that was subtler. That means that you are going from a grosser posture, a grosser movement, to a subtler movement or a fine movement. Then it would help you to get rid of these distracting thoughts. This is the next level that Buddha suggested. But having expounded these 4 steps, Dhamma friends, these 4 steps are based on your mind. So Buddha suggests us to accommodate this thought in a fitting way and to combat that thought. And as the last point, the Buddha expounds, although when you are giving attention to the originating point of this unwholesome, distracting thought, still all these distracting thoughts are coming your way to disturb. So what should you do as a last attempt? But this attempt is very important, my friends. But in this attempt, the Buddha wants us to use our physical strength also to get rid of this unwholesome thought. So it is very interesting to see what would be this level. So here, Dhamma friends, the Buddha says, then although you are not, although you are paying attention to the originating point of this evil, unwholesome thought, still it is disturbing. Then with your teeth clenched and your tongue pressed against the roof of the mouth, you should beat down, you should constrain, and you should crush your mind with mind. What does that mean, Dhamma friends? That means that using your two rows of teeth together, pressing them against, and putting your tongue against the roof of the mouth. That means taking some physical strength, applying some physical strength, your mindful effort. Then you should beat down, you should constrain, you should crush your mind with mind. Crushing the mind with mind means crushing your unwholesome thoughts with your wholesome mind. So that means you should crush the unwholesome state of mind with the wholesome state of mind. Then this is the last attempt. That means that Buddha wants us to anyhow, by any means, you have to get rid of these unwholesome, distracting thoughts. Then again the Buddha draws an example, a simile for that. So he tells us that imagine just as a strong man might seize a weaker man, and by head or by shoulder, and he will beat him down, and he will constrain him, and he will crush him down. So what does that mean? If a stronger man, just like the way a stronger man would seize or take a weaker man from his shoulder or from his head, and he will put him in trouble, and he will beat him down, and he will make him suffer in many ways. Just like that, take your wholesome thoughts, and with the energy of these wholesome thoughts, you can beat down your unwholesome thoughts. So we can see that, Dhamma friends, in the first 4 attempts, our mind is the one only working. But in the 5th one, if it is still unavoidable, so Buddha wants us to put some physical strength also to this taming your mind. So as a result of that, your mind will again come back to normal. It will be concentrated, and it will be subsided. So this is the advice of the Buddha. And as a result of this, Dhamma friends, Buddha says, this bhikkhu, the person who is practicing these above 5 points, this bhikkhu, the practitioner, is then called a master of the causes of thought. The master of the causes of thought. What does that mean, Dhamma friends? That means he will think whatever thought he wishes to think, and he will not think any thought that he does not wish to think. Whenever you want to think about a wholesome thought, then you think about that wholesome thought. When you don't want to think about an unwholesome thought, you can always, at any given time, you can get rid of this unwholesome thought. This is a particular quality that they have developed little by little. Then Buddha says, the one who can practice this, the one who can masters this art, getting rid of these distracting thoughts, he has served the craving, and he has flung off the fetters, and he is the one with the complete penetration of conceit. And ultimately, he is the one who has made an end of suffering, which is nothing but the nirvana, or the emancipation that we wish to bring. So, having said that, Dhamma friends, this is the message that Buddha wanted to give to his disciples. What does this mean? There are 5 levels of taming your life. But have you ever thought that whether we can apply the same to the lay life. So this, although this is preached for a monk who is pursuing a higher mind, which is 8 meditative attainments or the Ashta Samapatti, but still it is reasonable to think that the same 5 levels you can apply to your day-to-day life. Okay, suppose that you are a layman or you are a laywoman. So in your day-to-day life, in your routine work, there could be instances, there could be innumerable instances where these unwholesome, distracting thoughts come to your mind. But what if you were to give some room for these unwholesome thoughts to do whatever they wish to? But it will bring harm to you. Therefore, Dhamma friends, you have to follow this 5-step procedure to get rid of these unwholesome thoughts. If I were to recall them, summarize them again, once again, for the betterment of you as a layman. So first of all, what should you do? First of all, whenever an evil thought comes to your mind, first of all, you have to just because that you want to get rid of that, you can recall opposite thought with opposite nature. If you are having an unwholesome thought, you can recall a wholesome thought. That is step 1. Then as a step 2, you can then recall the negative consequences of this thought that you just received. So while recalling the negative consequences, then you will get the energy to get rid of this unwholesome thought. So at the next step, you still that unwholesome thought is bringing you suffering, bringing you pain. Then what should you do? Then you should try to forget that particular thought without giving much attention to them. This is the 3rd step. And the 4th step, still that unwholesome thought persists without dwindling away, then what should you do? Then you should focus your attention to the originating point of that formation, the mind formation. I mean that where you have to see what is the exact point where these unwholesome thoughts are coming from. When you are focusing your attention to that place, Dhamma friends, you can testify and see. Not because that I am preaching, so you can test it and see whether I am telling the truth or not. Then it will surely go away. It will dwindle away, and your mind will become back to normal. And as the last step, Dhamma friends, since you cannot give away, you can give a chance to these unwholesome thoughts to control your mind. Therefore, as the last step, Dhamma friends, somehow or other, by any means, by whatever the means that you can apply to, then you have to get rid of these unwholesome thoughts. Therefore, even though by clenching your 2 rows of teeth together, pressing your tongue against the roof of your mouth, even paying some bodily energy, making use of your bodily energy, then you should beat down, you should concentrate, and you should crush that mind with mind. You should crush that unwholesome mind with your wholesome mind. Just as a mighty person would bring sorrow, bring pain to a poor person or a weak person. This is the message of the Buddha, Dhamma friends. Therefore, applying these 5 pointed, there are the procedure with 5 levels. Having gone through these 5 levels, surely you will be in a position to beat down that unwholesome thought, which would bring you some negative consequences in the time to come. Therefore, you can apply this. Not that I am preaching this, not that the Buddha taught this. You can testify and see. So Buddhism, especially Dhamma friends, will not invite anybody to come and believe. You come here and believe. No. Buddhism says, come and see. Ehi passiko. Ehi means come. Passiko means see. If you can see something by your own eyes, you don't have to believe. So imagine that I have a gem in the clenched hand of mine. Then you can't see the gem. Then, having shown that I can see there's a gem in my fist, inside of the fist, you have to believe. Then, since you cannot see it, you can believe. Then, if I were to unclench that my fist, then you can see the gem. Then you don't have to believe because you see it yourself. The same way, Dhamma friends, in Buddhism, there's no place for belief. In Buddhism, there's ample place for seeing it yourself. That is the main difference from Buddhism from other religions, because we don't invite anybody to believe, but to see. So when you can when you can see it yourself, you don't have to believe, you don't have to keep faith in anybody because you see it. In the same way, Dhamma friends, I'm suggesting you can apply, you can testify, you can practice these 5-step procedure to get rid of the unwholesome thoughts which comes to your mind in your day-to-day life. Not because that I'm telling you, not because that Buddha has preached, not because they are written in books, but because you can testify and you can see it. Therefore, Dhamma friends, I advise you, I suggest you to make use of these Dhamma points to your lay life. Although you are a professional, although you are a worker, whoever you are, still you are a man, you are a woman, you are more on top of that, you are a human being. Therefore, you can apply them in your day-to-day life. Therefore, Dhamma friends, I'm not going to draw this any longer because I have to conclude this Dhamma sermon now. Therefore, now recall in this way all the meritorious deeds that we have accrued by listening to this Dhamma for this long, and all the meritorious deeds that we have accrued by preaching, myself by preaching the Dhamma. So let us recall, let us collect all these meritorious deeds and let us transmit to all the deities, all the devas of this universe who would protect this country, the Buddha Sasana, the dispensation of the Buddha, and may they attain Nibbana in this very life. And also, let us transmit all these merits to all our departed relatives, all the war heroes who have sacrificed their life, limb and liberty to the sovereignty and the integrity of this country. And also let us rejoice in this merit that we have accrued by listening to this Dhamma, and myself by preaching this Dhamma to all of us, and let us be free from sorrow and pain. May all attain Nibbana in this very life. May you attain Nibbana in this very life. May all the beings be free from sorrow and pain.
The Buddhist sermon was delivered by Venerable Maharagama Ananda Thera, Sandavimala Sanasuna, Valigampitiya, Pokunu Vita.